y'all, it's Hope here with Crafty Hope, and welcome. Today I am going to show y'all the last of my mini assemblages for the 100-day project. Yes, this is day 100's project. I decided to make it a little special, a little more intense than some of my other ones. So I decided to alter a little matchbox so it's, I don't know, interactive in some way. So you can see I also gathered a couple other things. I've got a little stack of buttons over there on the right that actually was a ring I had made several years ago, but the ring component part of it like popped off. And rather than just gluing it back on, because I was like, you know what, I'll save it for something else. And when looking for things for assemblages, I found it and was like, it would be perfect. I also had a resin piece. This is from a Finnabair resin mold. I'll try to link the mold itself so you can see it if you want to use it. So you can see I am gessoing the outside of my matchbox as well as the little drawer that goes in the matchbox, and I did it super messily. I knew that I was probably going to cover the outside with something, and the inside I just kind of like there were numbers printed on one side of that little drawer, so I didn't want those numbers showing. So that was the bulk of the reason I'm gessoing those pieces. Then the little watch resin piece, I'm putting black gesso on. So, yeah. And I do put a couple of coats of of gesso on both of those pieces, both the matchbox and that little watch. So here's a little bit of gold acrylic paint. This is just some craft paint. I have watered it down a little bit for some reason. I don't even know why I watered it down. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think I had read something from somebody that said that they made a wash for items that they were trying to accent. So they did like a water and paint wash. So that's what I did basically, just to see how it would do. And then you see I added more water to it. I think I'm going to blot it now. No, I'm just going to use a dry paintbrush to move some of that additional paint off. It was an interesting technique, one I've never tried before. It kind of pushed some of that paint to the background instead of had it sitting on top. Yeah, just something different for me to try. All right, so now I decided I'm going to alter the outside of this matchbox, and I'm taking a piece of dictionary paper that's got some, I don't even know, some kind of gold ink or splatter or paint, or I don't even know, on it. So it was kind of perfect since I've got that gold on the watch or the resin watch piece. So I'm using matte gel medium and putting it directly on to my matchbox, and then I'm going to kind of stick that paper to it, and then I'm going to cut across here just kind of in a straight-ish line. I don't cut straight lines well, so I'm doing the best I can. And then I'm adding it to the paper, and I'm going to roll the matchbox across this. I could have used a larger paintbrush, but I don't know. I think I was just grabbing whatever I thought would work. So I'm going to use do I use this whole piece of paper? I think I do. I decided that I couldn't decide where would be best to cut it, and I liked kind of the torn edge of that last little bit. So I'm just going to keep adding matte gel and rolling it. And if it's a little lumpy, it's a little lumpy. It's not going to be a big deal. I'm not super concerned about that. So at the end there, I do go over the top of that matte gel a little bit just to make sure it's secured down. I am adding, little bits and pieces of the matte gel just to smooth some of it down. But it is a little lumpy, and that's okay. It adds to the texture, and I do love some texture. All right, so I'm looking back over at my little drawer, trying to decide what I'm going to do with it, and the white of the gesso was just too much. So to grunge it up a little, I took a Stabilo all pencil, and also I'll just kind of quickly put some lines on it, just whatever. And I'm going to activate it real quick so that that Stabilo all kind of gets in some of the lines and the grooves of the gesso that we put on there earlier. And yeah, I kind of squish that box a little, and it needs something kind of in the background, so I will cut down some more of that dictionary paper since it's just sitting there. And you can see I'm eyeballing this. I'm not being super exact. I know that as long as I can get it inside that box, it doesn't matter to me if it comes up the edges some, because I can glue all that down however I want. So trimming it down just a little bit more, I'll grab that. I think I'm going to use the matte gel medium again. Yup. Because I just bought some more matte gel medium because y'all can see the bottom of that one and I knew it was getting time. So I was like, I don't care if I use up all this matte gel. You know, I still haven't. This was just over 3 weeks ago that I did this. So I'm sorry, I'm just now finishing these up for y'all. June has been a mad, crazy month with iCAD starting and everything else. And yeah, so I knew I needed to get this up for y'all to see. And yeah, so here it is. So I squished that paper down in there so it is nice. I'm making sure that some of my additions don't make it too hard for my drawer to go in. And now I'm looking at those components. I had decided that the watch is going to go on the inside and that little button piece will go on top. So I'm going to get back to altering this little watch piece, and I'm using some Finnabair, some kind of wax. I can't remember what it's called, and this is turquoise something, and it's got like a shift to it. And I was just playing. I was trying to see what things could do. This isn't going to do much because I will add other things on top of it. So yeah, it didn't. I think if maybe I had something else going on, it would be fine. And now I'm going to grunge up the inside of that Matchbox by doing the same thing I did on the outside, just putting some of that Stabilo All pencil kind of in the corners and then wetting it and pulling it outward. So that's a great little, yeah, grungy it up a little bit. And I think, yeah, I decided to pull it up on the sides too so it wasn't so abrupt. Yeah, like I'm trying to remember what I did, y'all. This is a while ago. I'm going to do some splatter with, there's some of that white gesso still sitting in my palette. So I'm just going to splatter it on the inside to add just a touch of white in there. Break it up a little bit so it's not strictly like something you think you can read. That is some, I can't remember if it's the antique gold or the gold leaf rub and buff, but I wanted to add some of that gold that's in some of the other areas kind of to the inside. So I'm just rubbing it on the edge of that box, and it's not something I think you ever see in the end of this, but to me, I didn't like that raw edge of that drawer. So I'm looking back at my resin piece again, and it's just not popping to me. So I was like, what can make it pop? So for some reason, y'all, I pull out red acrylic paint. Now nothing else on here is red, but I was like, let's try this. So I put it on my finger just very lightly, and I'm rubbing it over the top of it, trying to pick up some of the numbers and the hands and everything on that watch piece. And the red doesn't show up. I don't really care for it. I don't know what I thought I was doing with the red. I thought that maybe it was a good contrast to get some of the neutrals I had going on, but I just wasn't happy with it. So instead I go and grab this foundry wax. It's a Tim Holtz product, and I can't remember what the silver one's called. Y'all, I can't ever remember what these. I can tell you that like one's gilded and one's statue and one's yeah, I don't remember what this one is, but I put a little on my craft sheet, and I'm going to lightly rub it over the top of this, picking up those hands and those numbers, and it did a perfect job of doing that. That foundry wax is a really interesting product. It kind of solidifies as it sits, and when you heat it, it like becomes permanent and also gets a little bit shinier. So I'm going to heat it and let that shine pop a little bit more and make it permanent on my little clock. And it was hot. It was perfect because I've got that gold kind of in the background and then that silver on top, so it made it feel kind of like a treasured item. And I needed something on the front of that drawer to make it easier to pull it out. I thought about sewing a bead on of some kind, but then I remembered I had these little knob things. I got them on clearance at Hobby Lobby, so that probably means they don't have any anymore. But I'm sure there are other, I think Tim Holtz has a brand of these as well. It's two pieces, they screw apart, And I'm not sure what else you would use it for other than as a knob, but you could use all kinds of little things. So I went through trying to figure out how to punch a hole in it because like a hole punch wouldn't fit in there. So instead I'm going to use an awl, but if you have some other kind of pokey tool or pen or something that you can poke it through. So I am putting the yeah, I did make it a little bit bigger. So the part that has the like screw on it, I inserted that into the inside, and then I'm going to screw on the knob portion of it. And y'all, it's way sturdy. I mean, I wouldn't go yanking on that by any means and have it pull out, but it works perfect. So I couldn't find a phrase I really wanted anywhere. So I took a little scrap of a book page that's nice and yellowed and aged and typed up on my typewriter the phrase use your time wisely, because I wanted something that kind of applied to the clock there and also to the 100-day project. Like, I used my time the way I wanted to. Like, I knew I wanted to do the 100-day project, but I wanted to do it in a way that allowed for me to experiment and expand my skills over the course of the 100 days. So I did the mini assemblages, giving me a chance to explore different materials, what I like doing. And I really think that I did use my time wisely. And I'm doing kind of the same thing with iCAD this year as well. I really wanted to work on learning more embroidery stitches and kind of practicing that skill. And maybe I'm not doing it in the very best way possible, but it gave me opportunity to not only do iCAD, but to learn something else new and experiment and explore. So that's all I want to really say with the use your time wisely portion of this. So I did ink the edges of this with some Black Soot Distress ink before I glue it down, and I'm using a glue stick, Oohoo glue stick, to stick it in there. And I'm doing it with tweezers because I want to try to do it with that clock in there. I think I put that one down and realized I didn't ink it first. So I'm having to I tore it a little, but I thought, well, that's okay because this is supposed to look aged. So if it's a little torn, it's okay. But I use the tweezers just to make sure I could still get my little clock in there. And I will use E6000 here to put on the back of the clock and press it into my matchbox drawer. Now I've got to get to the cover here. So while that E6000 is curing, I will work on the cover of this. I did use a toothpick to pick up some of that excess E6000, which I like that it's kind of gel-like, and before it dries, you can remove some of it. So I didn't want that to be just purely just glued on there, and I happened to have some rust-dyed cheesecloth sitting there, so I thought, okay, that'll probably work. But first, I want to grunge up the outside of this like I have everything else, so that Stabilo Alls back out again, putting it on the edges, and guess what happens next? I'm so predictable. I will grab my wet paintbrush and smear that around a little bit to amp up that age. I hope you have enjoyed this 100-day project, and I hope it has inspired you to kind of try some of the things that you've been wanting to do as well, or at least given you an idea of how differently you can use some things. I will try to put a link to some of them right here. At least maybe one of my favorites. So I wanted a little bit more grunge on here, so that is some instant coffee that I reconstituted with water. That I use this instant coffee only for art. I don't drink instant coffee. I just have it for art. Oh, maybe I can't remember. Maybe I didn't use that cheesecloth. No, I decided instead to grab this little piece of, it's something from the Dollar Tree. It's got a bunny's face on it. They're these little bags they put out at Easter. I've seen them out at least 2 different years. And I decided I wanted something more solid on the background there. So I cutting it down, tearing it down, trying to just get it down so you can still see some of the dictionary text. But it still didn't feel like it had enough texture on it. So I went and grabbed some black thread, but then changed my mind and grabbed gold embroidery thread And I'm just going to slow stitch onto this little piece of fabric. I don't think I'm going to make you watch this whole thing. And when I say slow stitch, I mean run a running stitch, which just is an up down, so you've got like dashes of embroidery floss on here. I don't remember if I left this for you to see the whole thing or not, because I'm just using this. This happened to be on a needle that was already sitting on my desk. So I thought it would be perfect to add some more texture. It's hard. I mean, you don't really see it once I put that stack of buttons on there, but it also has that touch of shimmer to it that I've tried to add throughout this. So on the clock, there's the shimmer. On some of that background, what do you call it? Dictionary paper. Heavens, y'all. On all of that, you've got a little bit of gold shimmer, so I thought this was kind of a fun accent. I do kind of hate that I don't have that black on there, but I think it would have been, to have that black button on top of the black thread might have been too distracting, messy looking, maybe. So once I get that whole thing slow stitched, running stitched, whatever you want to call it, I am going to just weave the thread around on the background, because I knew I was going to glue it down, so I didn't want to mess with a knot that was going to be too time consuming. And I'll use, I believe, just some Fabri-Tac, and I'll put it straight on to my Matchbox cover there, and stick my slow stitch piece down, and then I will add some E6000 to the back of my button and put it down. You can see that little metal piece that's on the back of that button from where the ring broke. And once everything is dry, I believe this Matchbox is done. I hope you have enjoyed this whole project, at least the parts that I've shared. If you have missed some of it, please go check out hashtag Mini Assemblage 100, which was my hashtag on Instagram for the 100-day project. And you can see more of these projects that I created. All right, guys, I have more to come for y'all. There's still, of course, my Crafty Hip prompts and my weekly vlogs that I'm doing for iCAD. So I hope you will take the time and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell icon too, so you can be notified when I have new videos coming up. And you never know what it's going to be. Sometimes it's little assemblages, sometimes it's art journaling, sometimes it's jewelry. It's all kinds of craftiness. That's why I'm Crafty Hope. All right, guys, I hope you like this. Ask me any questions you've got, and I will see y'all very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.